after tonight, I hope that every single one of you will too, by casting your vote for him in the Rhode Island Republican presidential primary on April 24th. So without further ado, please rise to your feet and give a roaring Rhode Island welcome to top-tier Congressman and our next president, Reverend Rhode.
Because there is something we can do about it, and it's it's not something brand new. How about just sending only people to Washington who read the Constitution, understood it, and obey the Constitution? What would happen on the war issue? You mean we couldn't go to war without a declaration? There wouldn't have been a war since World War II? Oh, how tragic that would be if we couldn't have this war. No more wars without a declaration and get our troops on home. There was a time when they used to paint the label that if you didn't vote for the wars and all the expenditures, you didn't like the troops, you were un-American, you were unpatriotic. But guess what? If that's true, why do we get the most support from the troops? And very simply, we need to follow Article 1, Section 8, dealing with war. You don't go to war unless the people have it declared through their representatives in government. And we deny the authority to the president to go to war on his own. But what about the arrogance of a president that will come down, or the Secretary of Defense, and say, oh, we don't need to go to the Congress to get our marching orders. We can go to the... They claim they can go to the United Nations. Well, I'd like the United Nations to leave and deal with it. Well, this week, there was a little bit of foreign policy going on. Our president was down in Colombia, in South America. You know, I didn't know exactly what was going on, but you know I declined to have the Secret Service protect me. I very rarely comment on immediate diplomatic efforts around the world with our president, but you know, it's irresistible because our president went down there to represent us. And the first issue that came up is, Mr. President of the United States, could we have a discussion and maybe a more open dialogue with Cuba? Isn't the Cold War over? Well, the president said, no way, we can't do that. We got to be tough on the Cubans. I say, let's trade with Cuba, let's go to Cuba, let's travel to Cuba. Why don't then, that would undermine that system. When you trade and talk to people and travel, that is what undermines their government, not sanctions. There are now many people in Central America, in Mexico, in South America, as well as in this country, that have come around to a very different position on the drug war. Yeah. So this subject came up, and the position of the other governments said that maybe we ought to discuss it. Maybe we ought to change these drug laws. Yes, I think we should discuss it. I think we should come to the same conclusion that we did after we tried prohibition of alcohol when it failed to repeal prohibition of drugs. The drug issue is a very important issue. Drugs are very dangerous. But what isn't dangerous? Driving cars is dangerous, and there's all kinds of things. But who's responsible to protect you against danger? You're supposed to be the one. Protect us against ourselves. That is giving up all your liberty. The government owns you if they think they can protect you against all your own personal actions. Whether it's fire, whether it's drugs or fire across the street, children are taught by the parents. The parents are the best teacher. To assume that all this is to be done by the nanny state from the federal government writing regulations, it's a fallacy. All they do is write a lot of laws, cause a lot of mischief, spend a lot of money, and the bureaucrats make all the money, and then they arrest people for doing things that has harmed nobody whatsoever. We have 5% of the population of the world. We have 25 95% of the prisoners. Many of them, some estimate well over half, are nonviolent prisoners. So I would say that the American people aren't bad people compared to the rest of the world. I would say we have too many laws is the problem. This very year, on January 1st, there were 40,000 new laws passed on January 1st. What I would like to suggest to you, as president, I would like to be the first president ever to repeal 40,000. Of the Congress, but those laws that were passed by executive order are all illegal. I don't believe in legislating through the executive order, but I do believe if they're illegal executive order, a president can repeal those executive orders. We can start with the most recent one. This about two weeks ago, the president renewed the Defense Production Act, which has been around since 1950, which is emergency powers for a president in time of war can socialize everything, take control of all finances and all business. And that has been renewed pretty regularly. But this year, it was renewed by the president writing an executive order. But he made a few little changes. He said, yes, in time of war, but he added in time for peace also. Also, he wrote an executive order and said that it is now permissible and the law of the land, according to him, that he, as president, can decide if he needs to go out and assassinate an American citizen. As a law in the books, it's been used now a couple times. He said, well, just a couple times, probably bad people. But the law is written for bad people, too, because if bad people don't get a trial, we won't get a trial either. So this is the reason. When the big debate came up about Obama talking about the courts and instructing the courts about Obamacare, there was a lot of concern about that, but I think it was blown out of proportion. Obviously, he deserved that criticism, but what about him becoming the prosecutor, the judge, and the jury, and the executioner? Isn't that a bit of a violation of the judicial system? So there are so many places that we need to check. But you know, Congress is supposed to resist this when the president usurps his powers, but our Congress this last year, over my strong objection, they passed the National Defense Authorization Act, which virtually repeals posse comitatus, keeping the military out of the business of policing us day to day. But now it is the law of the land that American citizens can be arrested. Now that's bad enough. But an American citizen can be arrested and put in a secret prison and never see a juror, and never see an attorney, and be held indefinitely. That's the law of the land.